Hi, welcome to the Royal Cousers wedding vlog, episode 8. This is a very special episode. For the first time, we will be doing solos. As you all know, we have a royal theme for our wedding. And when we were started to build our wedding party, we wanted to make sure that theme came across in everything we did. So instead of having groomsmen, I decided to have knights. When you invite someone to be a part of your wedding party, you want to give them a token of your appreciation and thoughtfulness for them joining your wedding. Having a royal theme put even more pressure to make sure that this was really communicated across and everyone knew what they were getting into. Luckily for me, I had a trip to Toronto that sparked an amazing idea. In Toronto, we visited the EGLX gaming conference and I came across a vendor who had amazing cosplay swords. All of my favorites were there and I couldn't help but get one myself. After getting the Squall Lionheart Gunblade, and it actually sparked the idea for what I could do for my knights. Unfortunate for me and international travel laws, getting the Gunblade through customs was a journey. First, I had to find a bag that would actually fit a sword. That was difficult. Once I found the bag, I thought, all right, I'm just going through the airport, right? It's just a bag I have to check. Once we got to customs, you should have seen the face of our TSA customs agent. He saw the x-ray and man, his jaw dropped to the floor. He was so taken back. He had no idea what he was looking at. His first thought was, come here. What is this? Seeing this on an x-ray screen scared the shit out of this guy. He was actually a really good sport. He made it, he called his manager. His manager was amazing too. Shout out to the Canadians. They're very calm people. They deal with such poise and such professionalism. We had to crack it open. They had to actually look at it, make sure it wasn't functioning, make sure there was no ammo in the barrel of this thing, which again, doesn't really shoot. But after about 20 minutes of investigating, they wrapped it back up and allowed me to go through customs. That whole experience was hilarious. I remember looking at the airplane as we sat at the runway, trying to see all the bags come through to make sure my sword actually made it through. It was a little bit of a stress, but getting on the other side in the US and grabbing that bag and getting the sword made me very, very happy. In the end, I decided I can't do this times by number of nights. Just too much pressure, too much work to do. I had to find a quicker, easier solution to get similar swords for my knights. To simplify the process, I went on Etsy and found sword makers. Fortunately for me, there were 3 or 4 companies on Etsy, all having an amazing stock and arrangement of swords. Now the question became, what sword do I get and what makes most sense? Knowing my knights, I created a list based upon their favorite video game, movie, or TV franchise and determined what sword identified best with that franchise, which allowed me to find something that was unique to them, really custom for the things that they like, and still continue this whole theme. I mean, let's be honest, what guy hasn't dreamed of getting his own sword? What guy hasn't put themselves in a movie and said, I want to be him, and had plastic swords as a kid? What I wanted to do is take this theme and give real swords to my knights and actually really make them feel excited, as I know I did when I got my sword. Now I went back to Etsy and I used that list and communicated with 2 different sellers to determine who would be able to provide the most at bulk solution for all those 12. And I narrowed it down to 2 different companies and they both had almost the same list of swords, great options as well. And then I started negotiating with them to get the best package price as well as the best cost for shipping and things like that. One of the companies were based out in Italy. Their shipping cost was obviously the most expensive. The other was based in LA. Time was getting tight now. I knew I wanted to actually execute this before the end of the year, going into 2020. I wanted them to be armed and ready. And Christmas was a perfect time where everyone was coming to the tri-state area, even my West Coast guys, so it's perfect to get them all here and have one event where I could unveil. So that really helped me determine that the best solution would be to get the knight swords shipped from California as opposed to working with the Italy distributor. Finally, I got all 12 swords in hand. So amazing, so excited. what do you do now? You have 12 swords, you have a short window where everyone's around. How do you knight your knights? Well, you go to medieval times in Lindenhurst, New Jersey. I reached out to the medieval times team. I told them what we were hoping to do, and luckily for me, there's birthday parties and events they host all the time. Fortunately though, they've never done something this cool. So I reached out to my grooms. I told them I was gonna have the first ever grooms party experience because they didn't know they were knights just yet. And I asked them, for their availabilities and made sure a day worked for everyone. I got there in advance about 48 hours and dropped off the swords to a very excited team. They were so curious about what these swords were. They were excited to see them themselves. And it was really fun to kind of showcase these things. Because when you work with an event and something is a surprise, oftentimes you don't get to really engage with people because you're surprising so many people. So luckily this team was excited and I got to whip out a few of the swords and show them, and they were pumped. Day of the event, I was nervous, guys. Fortunately for me, 11 of my 12 groomsmen were able to make it to Lindenhurst, to the experience. It was on brand, like to the nines. We had an amazing time. All of my guys that you can imagine, they were a little nervous too, to be honest. And we immediately, as guys do, went straight to the bar.
Yo, Mark, Matt, Daryl, Vaughn. You got that nigga. Yo, I just ordered whatever you get.
After we went to the bar and we had a couple of drinks in our system, I actually thought it would be really cool for myself to be knighted, so that way when I knighted my knights, they were being knighted by an actual knight and member of a royal court. My knights totally took it as a joke, but they had no idea they were in for an even bigger surprise later that night.
All that shit, baby.
Yo, the only side that fucking matters.
Coming back to the room is Sir Jarrett Cousers to the Knights, Lords and Bannermen.
Yeah.
House Couser.
Yeah.
The Prince Jarrett and his future Queen.
Woo! Yeah, congratulations, bro.
Our knight of the show won the tournament, which was perfect. And then all 12 of us actually left and went down to a special room for what they thought was just a photo. And I had a royal scroll per knight written up so I can actually read what their title is in the royal court, as well as what their sword is and what they mean to me. So we start with my brother Lamont. I named him Master of Arms and Lord of War. His sword was Michonne's katana from The Walking Dead, his favorite TV show. Second, my brother Lamar, Lord Admiral of the Royal Fleet and Master of Ships. His sword was the Cloud Buster sword from Final Fantasy VII.
There's not a thing I don't cherish.
My oldest friend, Mark Griffin. I named him Hand of the King and Master of Coin. His sword was the Lord of the Rings, Endriel, Sword of King Elsier. Tim, one of my best friends from college, I named him Ringmaster and Sultan of Swag. His sword, the Chaos Blades from God of War.
I will have my revenge!
Monroe. I named him King's Regent and Master of Ceremonies. His sword, the Sword of Omens from Thundercats.
Thundercats!
Daryl Wells. I named him Grand Maester. His sword, Trunk Sword, Dragon Ball Z. Kyle Andel. I named him Master of Laws and Commander of the Night's Watch. His sword, the Sword of Gryffindor, Harry Potter. Alfonso! I named him Master of Whisperers and his sword, the Master Sword, Zelda. Marcus, I named him Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and his sword is actually the sword from Sword Art Online. So cool, Black Blade. Daryl Davis, I named him Grand Duke and Lord Squire of History. His sword, Blade's Daywalker sword.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Matthew, I named him Chapel Maester and Baron of Jesters. His swords, Strider's Ranger Sword, Lord of the Rings. One, unfortunately, shout out to Brad, was actually in Brazil with his wife, so he couldn't make it. But I knew I could make that up on a later time to see him directly. I named him Commander of the City Watch. His sword, Stormbreaker, Thor, God of Thunder.
Oh. Thank you. Oh my God. I could have used this on the floor. On the walls and everything.
Let me see you wield that.
Oh yeah. It's not light.
Bring me Thanos!
Getting the swords made these guys super pumped and prepared. Key tip, if you're gonna ask people to do a lot of work, make it worth their while and cool. Thank you guys for watching this episode and hearing the story about how we got our royal knights to join the court. Next up, you're gonna be able to hear Jill talk about her royal party as well and how she was able to create queens of all her bridesmaids.